I have a sore throat, so I'm not going to introduce the beer of the week, but go ahead and drink anyway. Hello and welcome to the show. You've seen the intro enough times if you're actually following me, and if you're not actually following me, then get on that, would you? Like and subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff that everybody does. Or really just share and comment. I don't even care if you like, I don't care if you subscribe, as long as you get other people talking about whatever I'm talking about. Or just talk back to me about what I'm talking about. Today we are going to look at the top 5 best villains of all time. It's kind of like my boss list, except for instead of bosses being specific to video games, it's kind of villains being specific to anything, and I'm not really taking into account any kind of combat challenge that they might possess, but I'm actually looking more of them objectively as characters. So number 1 is Walter White. Kind of an interesting sort of a character there. You didn't see that one coming, did you? Walter White is really interesting because, like, the whole show Breaking Bad is like his origin story, and at the same time his eventual demise, and you kind of see him grow as a villain the entire length of the show, which is why it's so good. I really like tragic villains because Walter White at the beginning of the show, again, was this poor guy dying of cancer that literally the only way that he could help his family anymore, as far as he could tell, was to start cooking and selling crystal meth, which, you know, that's a really crappy situation to be in. But eventually that just kind of took hold of him, and then later his cancer goes into remission, and he won't give up what he has worked so hard to achieve. He calls it his empire at a few points, I think. And just that idea is really interesting to me. Greed kind of takes him in, and pride is the one that takes him over. Going on to number 4, we're going to look at Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, I have always thought, is a really cool villain. That was a bad pun, and I said the word cool, so you have to drink twice. And I'll drink twice or so, just to make sure, you know. Also, Mr. Freeze is another tragic hero, which is the same reason I chose the last villain, so drink again. So Mr. Freeze is apparently the kind of villain that really makes you want to drink. But seriously, Mr. Freeze just has a fantastic backstory. He's basically attempting to save the life of his chronically diseased wife, and inadvertently completely screws himself over, basically. Just the nature of how his character came about is really interesting to me. And also, he's just got amazing superpowers. You know, just look at me. I got a freeze gun. I'm gonna freeze you all. That's been copied and recopied now 100 times, and he's kind of the guy that established that cliche. And when you do something before it's cliche that then becomes cliche, that's when you know that you're onto something. Number 3 on my villains list is Durandal from Marathon. Marathon was a series developed by Bungie before Halo, and you don't remember it, so drink. Marathon had some really cool stories between all 3 games, and throughout all of them, there was kind of this central character, Durandal. He was an artificial intelligence, much like Cortana from the Halo series. He was what they called a smart AI, which means basically he has no memory capacity, but after a certain point, he begins to go rampant. And if you don't know what that means, then go ahead and drink and look it up. Or look it up and then drink, whichever tickles your fancy. But Durandal, even through his rampancy, kind of cobbled together some semblance of a plan. And you play as this cyborg space marine, basically, and he eventually traps you in a time loop, which is set up to make him immortal. You go through the whole story of the game, and he says, "Thank you for fighting off all those foes that otherwise would have killed me. Now I'm going to send you back in time so that my life may be prolonged once more." And you are instantly teleported right back to the first level. And that's just like crazy. Like in writing, in character, and the way that it develops through the story, and you kind of see this. You don't see that coming, but you see what else is going on with him, and it's just so well done. If you haven't played any of the games of the Marathon series, I would definitely give them a go. Number 2 best villain of all time. I very highly debated putting it number 1, partially because I have this raging Star Wars boner, because obviously Rogue One just came out. But anyways, Darth Vader is number 2, and Darth Vader is phenomenal. Darth Vader ruled a galaxy for like 30 years. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, no, it was the Emperor that ruled the galaxy. Yeah, but would the Emperor have had the chance to take over the galaxy half as easily without Darth Vader? Absolutely not. Darth Vader was the guy in charge. Except, he took orders from the Emperor, but at any time, if he had wanted to just destroy the Emperor and make it a real dictatorship instead of a dictatorship that's a monarchy on paper, then he absolutely could have. He had an iron grip on the entire Star Wars universe, and that's just amazing. Darth Vader is also a really great character, again, because he established a cliche. He is the first guy that you saw where suddenly the villain reveals himself to be the father of the main character. And that's been used time and time again ever since. And it's not always necessarily the father, but, like, oh, I'm your brother, or I'm, somehow related to you, has been kind of used a lot. And again, if you are the guy that makes something that becomes cliche, there you go, you're onto something. Finally, number 1, the villain and the topic which has got the best depiction so far as visual aids go, Sauron. Special thanks to David Day, who made this really awesome bestiary. I have no idea who that is, but this thing is awesome. It's got a ton of information in there. Go read a book, why don't you, for once. Put down the YouTube, stupid. Sauron is an enemy literally millenniums in the making. He's not only a large influence to The Lord of the Rings, which is, that's 3 books by itself. 6 books, technically, if you want to get technical. Do you want to get technical? Because if you do, then drink. But in addition to The Lord of the Rings, he in many ways affected the entire story of The Hobbit, and if you read a lot more of Tolkien's work, then you'll find he's everywhere. He's literally in almost every story in the Tolkien universe. His presence shaped Middle-earth, and the Undying Lands are obviously affected by whatever happens in Middle-earth, at least to some extent. Part of the same world, part of the same history. The best part of Tolkien is not the narrative. As much as I like the narrative in The Lord of the Rings, the best part of Tolkien is all of the little things that he put together to create a fictitious world that is more believable than any other. Such a rich fictitious history is very seldom even conceived, much less put down into multiple books that spawn fan-made works. This is unheard of. No other series has this kind of thing. And the fact that Sauron left his mark on almost every story in this world that has spawned this many offshoots this many years after the original creator has stopped creating it because he died is fantastic beyond belief. Alright, so that's my top 5. If you didn't like it, then please tell me why you didn't like it in the comments below, and I would be glad to berate your opinions as well. Or perhaps we can have a civilized discussion, but that sounds much less interesting. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check me out on Facebook and look up my crappy website. And most importantly, would you please share and comment? Because I'd really like this thing to be more of a conversation than just me blabbing about stuff. Alright, thanks, guys. Also, today's beer of the week, I guess I will explain now, because my voice is feeling a little better because I've been drinking whiskey all night, is Black Velvet Canadian Rye. It's not the best rye you'll find, but it's the best anything I've ever found for $10.